Welcome, my hearty sailors, to our long-awaited voyage on the high seas of the old world as we dive into a classic Games Workshop 1993 specialist game, Man of War. I'm joined by the Imperial Admiral Nick as he takes on the freshly painted ships that I painted for commission on behalf of Eavylead Studios. One of Nick's two Man of War great ships has a custom Crown of Command sail, and is carrying a Hellblaster volley gun to ward off my Greater Demon of Tzinch, admiraled by patron Courtney in Australia. On the other side of the seascape, I am playing the Chaos Fleet with a mix of Khorne and Tzinch, featuring some new ships such as the Khorne Bloodship and a squadron of Iron Sharks. And before birthing my ships, I drew my Chaos Gifts to bestow untold glory to my Death Galleys and the Great Winged Terror. Nick had generated the terrain for our seascape and chose a fitting scenario from the Plague Fleet rulebook with the Isle of Dread. The Chaos player would have a shorefront placed in the centre of the table with 3 Chaos crew manning its fortified walls. It would be up to the Imperial player to control the shore fort to gain a bonus of 5 battle honours, and if Nick can't control it, then destroying it would deny me the 5 battle honours. The shore fort is also manned with 3 defensive cannons that have a 360-degree field of fire, which is very nice. Nick had to sift through hundreds of Chaos crew counters to randomly select 3 brave servants of Chaos to defend the shorefront, which we found not so easy given how many counters there are. As Nick was sifting, I was gifting some terrain elements a Chaos gift of their own, as the Chaos player has to roll to determine which terrain becomes Chaos terrain on a roll of a 4+. Lip reading that I had no idea, I chose the Chaos terrain at random, which resulted in some Iron Crags and the Sea of Change to our Chaos terrain elements for today's game. The Iron Crags terrain would move at the end of each phase in a random direction by d6 inches, and if it would collide with a ship, there would be dire consequences. The Sea of Change, however, offered blessings and curses depending on the die roll if you dare enter its misty waters. After rolling to see which direction the wind would blow, it was time to determine sides, with Nick winning the roll and casting me to the Chaos Wastes to deal with the volatile terrain. Before we could begin, we had to determine which Chaos troops inhabited the Chaos shorefront. 3 counters were pulled out at random and placed face down on the template. Nick also had to determine what college of battle magic his Wizard Lord would be. And as fate would have it, he became a Gold Wizard. Nick was entitled to 1 free Man of War card, and he purchased another 4 to give him a whopping 5 Man of War cards that he drew at random to bestow on his great ships. And his Gold Wizard would start with 6 randomly drawn spells as he's a Wizard Lord. Surveying the seascape, Nick had to deploy a ship or squadron first as he chose table sites. And we took it in turns to alternate the placement of our ships and flyers. If this is your first time seeing Man of War, then I can say that I've had the pleasure of introducing this game to many people, including Nick. And if you'd like to find out more information about Man of War, please check out the links in the video description to access more information on how you can discover more about this classic specialist game. I felt blessed by the Chaos Gods in winning the initiative for the turn and starting the first phase of the game, which is the Magic phase. If you're an experienced Man of War player playing Chaos, or if you've seen our other battle reports focusing on Man of War, you'll know that Chaos Magic is very dangerous. To mitigate the danger, I cast Plague of Flies on Nick's Man of War ship, but with no added power cards, which meant that I need to cast it on a 6, give him a +1 being a Chaos Sorcerer. But I failed on a 2, but without any dire consequences. Nick pondered in his golden silk robes as to what spell he was going to cast this turn, and then decided to cast Storm Strike, which would see a crew counter fall overboard. Nick still had to successfully cast it before I decided to dispel. Thankfully he rolled a 1, fizzing out his magical storm. In my last action of the magic phase, I placed 2 power cards into the Icon of Power, which enables me to roll 2d6 for each card stored at an enemy flyer when I activate my Great Wing Terror. The first activation of the game in my control, I activated the Blood Ship and sailed it straight towards the shorefront. And Nick ordered his prestigious wolf ships forward to begin their assault on the fortified walls of the shorefront. With each of Nick's successful hits from his wolf ship's cannons, I met them with equal saves that held the foundations in place. Well, for the first turn at least. And thankfully his war galley's cannons were out of range this turn. What makes Man of War a little special is that it uses alternate activations, with both players activating their ships in turn, one at a time, and resolving all the ship's actions before activating the next ship. And did you know that Man of War was developed by Nigel Stillman, Andy Jones, and the legendary writer Bill King? And it's also nice to know that Brian Ansell was a game consultant during the development of the game. The Chaos Tzin ships use energy tokens to give it both its movement and shooting abilities. Each counter used gives you a d6 in inches for movement, or alternatively a die roll for range attacks. I decided to do something a little bit daring this time with the Winged Terror, and used all 6 of its energy tokens to fly into the Empire's back lines. At the end of the turn, we had to determine where the Iron Crags were going to move to, and we randomly determined that, rolling a die for direction and a die for d6 inches. At the start of turn 2, we rolled again for initiative and rolled a double and an even number, which the wind would change direction and blew behind the Empire fleet and forced me to move under oars this turn. Thankfully, the Chaos Gods favoured me and I won the initiative for the second time. Magic phase, I attempted to cast Death Surge, which would give my entire fleet an extra d6 inches of movement for the turn, but I didn't disappoint in rolling a 1, but yet again, not using power cards keeps me safe from the miscast table. Nick, now reveling in my misfortune, decided to cast the bright spell Panic, that if successful would steal back the initiative for the turn. As Nick got the spell away on a roll of a 4, I desperately threw my entire hand of cards to see my dispel succeed on a 2+. I held my breath and thanked the gods as I rolled a 3 and could breathe a little easier. With the initiative back in my hands, I activated the Great Winged Terror, and its flight took it behind the great ship, expending 3 energy tokens to do so, and the final 3 targeting the lower areas of the vessel's hull. Even though Nick rolled exceedingly well for his saves, my daring move across the seascape was not for naught, and I took out one of his 3 broadside cannons. Any Empire player in Man of War that's worth their salt knows how powerful an Imperial warship is with its 3 cannon battery at its prow. Well, after successive hits, the walls of the shorefront began to smash asunder, resulting in 2 locations damaged and both its cannons taken out. The short range of its cannons meant that the Blood Ship had to wait another turn before it could make any impact. Admiral Nick sought to add more pressure with his great ship sailing in alongside and opening up with its heavy cannons to add an additional -1 save modifier, which saw the shore fort lose its last and remaining cannon location. Iron Sharks without any range capabilities moved under oars to be prepared for next turn's potential rams and boarding actions. Nick positioned his Griffins to screen the front line of his fleet. Now cannon-less, I activated the shore front as my activation this turn. Nick's Wargalley squadron sailed in to take shots at the Blood ship, which angered the frenzied Chaos Warriors aboard, with his first shot glancing off the ship's prow, and the second shot missing altogether, and the third Wargalley unable to make a legal shot. And Nick's Admiral's Crown of Command great ship blasted all of its broadside cannons at the foreshore, only to see them all miss. Hurrah! And with my last two remaining activations, I had the Death Galley advance under oar, and the Greater Demon of Tzinch fly in and board one of the Ward Galleys. The War Galley crew passed their terror test, and they went on to fail to hit with their small arms fire. And if these dice roll one more effing 1 in a critical moment, I may just lose it, Basil Fawlty style. The result of the boarding action was a draw, so I lost a wound and Nick a crew counter. And the Iron Crags continued to cruise away from my fleet, thank Khorne. This turn brought Nick some luck as he won the initiative and saw him cast magic first. And with a sly grin, he attempted to cast the Gold College spell Blades of Battle, which would give his crew aboard the great ship a +2 to boarding actions for the turn, which he succeeded in casting. I decided to let that spell go through as I had a spell I wanted to cast that looked beautiful, and it would have been, looking at the size of that template. With the 7+ to cast and adding enough power cast to make it a 2+, what could possibly go wrong?
Oh, you
And I had to roll a d6 for each power card I used to consult the miscast table, resulting in, thankfully, no ones rolled and just 2 levels of power reduced in the end. Crown of Command great ship sailed in close to maximize its targets with all cannons firing starboard and prow. Nick revealed that he had the Fire Strike Man of War card, which inflicts flame damage to ships successfully hit. Language that would have made a sailor blush was used when I rolled 1s and the Iron Shark had 2 locations engulfed in flames. One of the Death Galleys was also succumbed to flammable ammunition, and I started to think that maybe the Dark Gods had jumped ship. The Iron Sharks were hungry for lumber, and now the one engulfed in flames engaged the Crown of Command great ship to chomp on its hull. Remember, anything but a 1. Ships of the line reverse under oar to get them into potential ramming distance for next turn, and the one eligible shot missed. I was rammed by one of the War Galleys, but thank Khorne as I rolled a 6 for my below the waterline save. And the single cannon shot from the War Galley hit the Hammer of Khorne, but it proved too resilient. The Greater Demon of Tzinch flew in to claw and gnaw at the Griffin Rider and successfully defeated it in airborne combat, sending the feathered beast to the high seas. Nick saw his chance to level up the score, seeing the now wounded demon and engaged in aerial combat with the second of his Griffin Riders. The Griffins have a special ability that can force their opponent to reroll a single die, or they can choose to reroll a single die, making them formidable in close combat. It was inevitable that my squawking bird brain was doomed to the warp, where he will be summoned again in a future conquest. My bloodship had to push off the war galley it was in contact with to be able to glide past and enact both a boarding action and be able to fire its cannons on one of the wool ships. Successful hits targeting the Imperial ship were met with equally successful saving throws, which left the Chaos Lord enraged. The boarding action, however, on the war galley proved very one-sided, and the Chaos Warriors beheaded all the sailors to claim their skulls for their blood god. Nick's proud warships barraged the fort walls with salvos of cannon fire, causing 2 critical hits and also resulting in losing 2 of the shore fort's crew. The Great Winged Terror having more luck this turn, scoring 2 unsaved hits and putting some damage into one of the Emperor's finest. The Icon of Power also fired, expending a single power card that created 2 bolts of energy, felling the wounded Griffin as it crashed into the waves below. Nick's overzealous captains ended up destroying the shore fort and not capturing it after all, but this gave me a -5 battle honours as I failed to hold it. One of the Khorne's death galleys was blessed with a flaming prow, which did set ablaze a location in one of Nick's war galleys. And one of the death galleys in the squadron did Khorne proud as the cannon shot and damaged the Admiral's ship. The Bane Tower, hoping to be equally blessed, was left disheartened when Nick rolled 2 saves, negating the energy bolts of Tzinch. In the end phase, we had to roll for the effects of blaze counters, as they can sometimes move backwards or forwards as the fire spreads throughout the ships. In my case, one of the fires did spread, causing more damage. The Chaos crew returned to the Bloodship after scuttling the war galley to the murky depths. And as for the Iron Crags, well, they just moved over a bit. Nick, now seizing the initiative for the turn, began to cast an amethyst spell, Spectre, which would see 1 crew counter killed by an animated figurehead. Succeeding to cast and not counted, one of the Iron Shark cultists got spooked. On my magic turn, I wanted to cast Abstract Terror on Nick's fleet, which if successful would have Nick unable to move or shoot and only defend in boarding actions. A cunning spell worth getting off, but I needed to roll a 3 or better to cast it. But as fate foretold, the Chaos Sorcerer was dragged into the warp, never to be seen again. The last Griffin Rider, now seeing an Iron Shark with a single crew counter, took advantage and was able to pluck the remaining cultists off the deck and send them to drown in the ice-cold waters. Bloodship was able to ram one of the outlying wolf ships, which has its own special rules for whether you hit low or high locations. After making several rolls, I was able to finally damage the woolship's stern, which was pretty underwhelming. And even rolling a 1, I was able to kill off the crew with my 3 Chaos Warrior counters, which counters 6 crew for the purpose of boarding actions, and sending a crew over to scuttle it in the end phase. The Admiral's great ship, the Crown of Command, sailed in to cause havoc amongst the Chaos ships in firing its cannons at the Iron Shark and boarding the Bane Tower, which was unable to prevent, which left the Bane Tower abandoned in the end. In a last-ditch hope, the Tzinch's Man of War unleashed all 6 of its raw energy magical power bolts, hoping to score some critical hits on the wool ship, but alas, only superficial damage was inflicted. The great ship's crew overwhelmed the Iron Shark, and not even high rolling was enough to save the ship, as it became abandoned and left drifting at sea. The war galleys and death galleys were evenly matched, and both sides claiming small victories but resulting in a stalemate in the end. . With the shore fort now destroyed, the wolf ships could turn their attention to threats close at bay. And they did, almost taking out the Great Winged Terror after salvos of cannon fire tore into the demonic vessel, leaving it with only a single token of energy to keep it afloat in the air. And with the turn drawing to a close, we decided to draw this game to a close. With the battle honours stacked in the Empire's favour, I shook Nick's hand and congratulated him on a battle well fought. And thank you again for making it to the end of this long voyage today, which I hope you enjoyed, and a massive thanks to all my amazing patrons who help support the channel, and of course to my wonderful sponsor Black Arrow Minis. And in the Crown of Command tradition, with every voice recording comes some colourful language, so if you do have small children or pets, I advise you to cover their ears right now. Which saw the shore fort.